I'm pumped today to be joined by one of the biggest social media superstars online right now. And he's probably made you cry or given you the feel goods at some point in your life. I guarantee that you've seen his content because it is shared all over the internet. 36 billion impressions in this past year alone. Zachery Dereniowski, aka MD Motivator. We go way back. I want to thank you for coming into the studios here and chilling with me for a little bit.
No, thank you for having me, Dr. J. And it's a pleasure being here, man. Excited for our conversation.
I'm excited to get to see this. What we've been building over the past few years. I've seen you building. You've done some really impressive stuff on social. I've seen your content evolve a lot over the past 6-7 years since we got to know each other. So I'm super excited to dive into that with you today. Your experience as a creator. Hopefully we can get some tips for other creators out there.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about mental health. I know that's important to you, me as well, from a couple perspectives. One, dealing with it personally, and then I know you come from a healthcare background as well. And then would love to start by just kind of going over our story. I think we've got a really fun story
That's a cool
and a lot in
spot to start.
common.
Yes, sir. You want to start that?
No, I'd love to hear it from your perspective first,
Okay.
and then I'll fill in some gaps. What do you remember from getting to know me? What was
Okay,
that
so
like?
This has been a long time coming. This is now, 5-6 years? I was initially on Instagram, White Coat Vision, not even MCAT Motivator. Like, my name's changed a few times. But essentially, I was a pre-med student with a vision of trying to be a doctor. And I remember going to social media to find mentors and coming across your page and just being inspired by, obviously, the platform that you built. And I'll never forget the day that you reached back out to me and offered me advice. I think we did a little bit of content together, sharing of stuff, and I had nothing to offer at the time to you, nothing to give other than obviously just like appreciation and thanks. But you being there for me when I was the beginning of my medical school journey, and to see you at RiseCon this past weekend in Tampa was a surreal moment because I've always wanted to meet you and just give you my utmost love and respect because you helped me, and my mom was a testament of that. You really were a huge mentor to me at that time. So thank you for, one, being there for me then, and two, I'm excited to connect with you now, make this thing full circle.
Same here, and it's so surreal because we go so far back, and it's amazing the journey that life takes us on.
Yes.
I mean, we were both in medical school when you were talking, and I remember you as MCAT Motivator, and I think that's the piece of content that we did.
Yep.
Talking about MCAT advice.
Yes.
And look at us now. You're collaborating with Kim Kardashian. How was Kim? How was beating Kim Kardashian?
She's amazing. No, I'm playing. She was amazing. Spent 2 hours with her. The coolest thing when you meet these celebrities is they give you can notice when they're like genuine. She was there for 2 hours present. She was
Really?
focused, dialed into the conversation on the dad and the son, myself, reform and giving back and part of the restitution. So nothing but utmost love and respect for her. And just, it was surreal to know that the videos connected with her. I can give you like the background, how that happened, if you want to know how that happened. That's
We'll get into the content section of the interview.
But it's been crazy that, like you said, 36 billion impressions. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, Kim K is like you, like me, like anyone. Everyone has emotions and they want to feel connected and part of something. So when the videos can evoke that emotion, you're able to tap into these networks that otherwise it would be impossible. So I feel very blessed that my videos have done that.
Yeah, and I think you're able to offer something really unique to celebrities like Kim Kardashian. And it is tapping into that human emotion
Yes.
that not a lot of people can do with collaboration. So it's such a cool thing. But I want to go back just a little bit to
Sure.
when we first met. We were both in medical school.
Yes.
And we pulled the plug at different points in our journey. I
Yes.
finished medical school. I did a year of training in family medicine. At what point did you decide to leave medicine?
I was almost 2 years into medical school. I was at the University of Sydney in Australia, and I was going through my own COVID, being on the other side of the world, depression, going through a 6-year relationship breakup, tearing my ACL, so I couldn't even really walk by myself. Was going through, essentially, I stripped myself of everything that was like a variable in my life and saw where I was at, and finally questioned, is this the path for me? What's my purpose? What makes me happy? And when you're on this path, as you know, there's no time for plan B or to think. You need to put everything you possibly can into making this thing happen, if it's medical school or competitive specialty or the financial debt or burden or the sacrifices you make for this. So this was the first time in like 6 years that I had that opportunity to see it as that. And when I saw where I was, and dabbling into this social media world I've always had, but then recently with like the mental health stuff and connecting vulnerably and feeling like alive and purposeful, and this kind of like my shtick, but not really having anything to show for it.
Yeah.
I saw it as an opportunity to put myself on a 12-month leave of absence from medical school, thankfully, fly back home to Windsor, Ontario, Canada in September of 2021, move back home into my parents' basement, and 3 days after moving home, making like my first, like I say, real video. And then that video had like 20 million views overnight, and then it just haven't looked back since, and it just grown and evolved over the last almost 2 years. But it was really scary at the time to jump from this one ship that everyone sees as this like podium or like on a hierarchy, right? Like it's such a high level, and not just how people view it, but everything that you've had to do to be there, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's opportunity. How do you jump ship then when you've so far in? So that was the scary thing for me. So I'd love to hear more of, one, not when you jump ship, but what it was like during that transitionary period for you.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can attest to this. It becomes part of your identity. The amount of time and resources that you pour into it. Your family starts calling you doctor at a young age. Your friends are calling you doctor. And how do you give up that identity?
Yes.
It's a really tough question. And I think that's why a lot of people won't do it even when they're chronically unhappy. And one of the things I wanted to poke a little bit deeper into with your journey was, did you have security when you left? Were you making money? Did you know that social media was going to work?
Yeah, I was making $0 when I left. I was delusional. I don't know what I thought how this would work, or how I would pay my debt back, or how I would make money. I just knew that I was really questioning like my life at that stage, and like I knew I was on the wrong path for me. And the farther I saw myself going in, the farther I saw myself going finally down a wrong path. And there's a quote I put on the thing, and my dad says, "Pivoting in life is different than quitting." And at that time, it really felt like I was letting people in my life down, myself down, people, like everything that I built. But I knew I was doing something finally right in my heart. And I was so numb from the depression that I didn't really care what people thought of me for once in my life, which was the biggest blessing. Because when you finally can rid yourself of that care, like truly rid it, not just say it, the world's your oyster. Life becomes easy in terms of the path becomes much more directed towards what you're doing. And like the Kim K or the following and all that stuff, that just happened because I was doing what was right in my heart, not because I've always had a dream of making a video with Kim Kardashian or trying my hardest to reach out. It happens when you're on your right path. So I want people to find that path for them. And I think that's way easier said than done.
Much easier said than done, especially not caring what people think. It's a really easy thing to say, and a lot of people say it. But I'll be transparent about myself. Like, that was a big thing for me. I still care what people think. It's hard. Do you have any advice for people going through a professional career right now? Maybe they're in law school, they're in medical school, they're getting their CPA. Maybe they're 20 years down the road, miserable in a medicine job. What advice do you have to those people to shed that ego and to make the decision that they know they need to make to be happy?
When I first made that decision at 28, I was like, this is too late in this path, too late almost in my life. I don't think there's ever a point in your life where it's too late. It's never too late to open the next chapter. And by doing that and listening to what's right in your heart, you'll never be disappointed because of it. So my biggest piece of advice is to take that leap of faith for yourself. Because if I was still on that path, I'd be faking it still, and I don't know where I'd be. And yeah,
I agree with you.
There's lots of people, as you know, in the healthcare space that probably reached out to you. They reach out to me all the time that are faking it, and they're struggling, or they're in a hole, and no one knows. No one knows. No one cares. And they just keep puddling on that path. That's not their path. There's nothing wrong with the medicine path. It's just not their path.
Yeah.
That's all.
If you're miserable, then choose uncertainty, because the misery is probably not going to change. It's funny. Every time I meet a doctor nowadays, I get the same reaction from them. You did it. You got out. I'm so jealous of you. Congratulations. I'm wondering, do you get that same reaction from people? Do they respond that way?
It's a mix.
Yeah.
I get a mixed reaction. Like, I love just messing with people. They're like, "Oh, so what do you do?" I'm like, "I quit med school and make TikToks to like strangers on the street," and they like get blown away. And she finds it so funny because we just like play with people. But like,
It is funny. If you tell your
It's
grandma
funny,
you're going to go
man.
do that, my grandma shat her pants when I told her that I was leaving. She
Nah,
was not happy.
I guess you get like a mixed set of emotions, but I do it with her and like play with like not play with people's emotions, but just to like say it to see how they react because I just genuinely finally don't care.
Yeah.
And I know it's so right in my heart. Like a perfect example is last summer, I was in Europe and Jason Derulo. It's one of the first times someone like really cool reached out. Jason Derulo's manager reached out and said, "Come to Bali and we're gonna do like a give back video in Bali."
Hell
He's like,
yeah.
"He loves your stuff." I'm like, "Oh my god, Jason Derulo! Like this is unreal, like unfathomable." So I do it. I come back home to Canada and I'm going through customs for Detroit and Windsor, and the border officer pulled me over and he's like, "Oh, so like where did you go?" I was like, "Oh, I'm." He's like, "What do you do? What's your line of work?" And I said, "Oh, I quit medical school to make videos, and now I travel making videos." He's like going through like my glove box to see what I have. He's like, "Oh, so like you better go back to med school. Like make sure you finish. Like you need to become a doctor. Like that's all fun and games kind of thing."
Right.
And I looked at him. I'm like, "I'm never going back." Like I'm so happy what I did. I said I just came back. We did a video with Jason Derulo. I've grown this following. I'm happy. I'm giving people purpose. And then he left the conversation asking me like, "Oh, so what's like your handle on social media? I'd love to check it out." Lo and behold, he goes to his phone. He's already followed the page. He's already a fan, and he says, "Congratulations, you've made me feel these things," and like shares all these.
Right.
But that's great. But I didn't need his validation at that point, and that was the first time I think I realized that like I didn't care. Like before I didn't care and I was numb, but now I didn't care and I was happy. So I feel like that's the best feeling in the world is when you know you're on your path.
So imagine you're a parent and you have a kid
Yep.
and he's in medical school
Yes.
and he says, "Daddy, Zachary,
Yeah.
I'm not happy. I'd like to quit medical school and want to be a YouTuber."
Yeah.
What's your advice to your son? What should other people tell their kids when they go, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to be a YouTuber. Screw your path that you chose for me." What is your advice to parents?
I think when I was going through what I was going through when I was in Australia, my dad was better than my mom in terms of being there for me without getting too much emotionally involved. It was really hard. My dad was really good at listening and not judging. So listening, not judging, and coming up with at least a short-term plan. So I had like a plan for like 6 months and a year of what I was gonna do and how financially I could like stay afloat for the 6 months to a year. So creating a plan, and it was more so why he believed in it enough for me to come home was 2 reasons. COVID, he hasn't seen his son in 2 years.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, parents, one, they just want their kids to be happy more than money, more than anything. So when they saw I was like rock bottom, that triggered for them. And then the second thing was, why did I want to do what I was doing? And I made that very clear because I didn't want other people to feel how I felt. That's all I cared about. That's why I did blindfolded hugging videos for 4 months, because when I spoke at RiseCon, 2 middle-aged women helped me through a difficult time that were strangers, that if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I'd be. And that was the purpose behind it. So my dad understood how much it mattered to me. I don't think anything ever mattered to me more in my life at that stage of getting that across. I didn't know it'd be viral or it would work or if it turned into a nonprofit or a store or what
Right.
the heck it would turn into. But a short-term plan, listening to me, and my purpose was bigger than myself. And it was through something that I went through. And that's why I think he believed it in enough to give me a chance. So I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah. You know, Tony Robbins says having a strong enough why is going to push you through anything that you need to get through. And one compliment I'll give you from talking to you over the years, from watching your videos, is you can tell the why is pure.
Thank you.
For a lot of creators, you can't. For you, it's clearly there, and I think that's why you have so much success, especially with all the celebrities. So just want to give you some kudos there.
I appreciate that.
Let's change gears a little bit, lighten up. Let's talk about some of the content that you do, some of the recipes for virality, some of the equipment that you use, how you're able to get such genuine public reactions from a logistics standpoint. We'll do all of this stuff. It's going to be fun. But first, what is a core memory that you have from creating content? One piece of content, one video that you remember. Tell me about that one.
Oh, there's hundreds.
So many.
I guess we can go with like the first time I saw someone, I see it every day now, those who have the least give the most. It was, I think, October of 2021. I just started making videos. I had a sign that said, "Who do you wish you were with right now?" This guy comes up to me. He blurts out, he's like, my ex. And I said, what happened? He's like, she cheated on me. I said, so how are you now? He's like, well, I'm homeless. I'm like, why? He's like, well, I gave her the home because she has 2 younger daughters, and I didn't want them to be on the street. So I just gave them the house because I didn't want that. And he said this so nonchalantly. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, you don't have a home. Like, why are you saying this so, like, carefree? And I've never seen this in real time. And then I remember, like, 2 minutes before we started, like, interviewing him, he was on the other side of the street. And there was, like, a guy with, like, a Dunkin' Donuts, but in Canada it's called Tim Hortons, coffee cup with, like, a change cup. And I saw you put change into another man's cup. And Patrick's my videographer. And I'm talking on my mic. And I'm like, Patrick, didn't he, like, put change into another, like, homeless man's cup? Like, thought he said he's homeless. He's like, he did. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like call him out on it. I was like, didn't you just like put change into another homeless man's cup? I thought you were homeless. He's like, it's my birthday in a few days, so I had a few extra bucks. I'm like, how old do you turn? He's like, 32. So I'm like, happy birthday. And the idea that someone gave up their home, gave their last few bucks or change because there's someone who's more in need, and not because it was a video, just so nonchalantly, it blew my mind. To see it in real time, because I know you hear it or maybe you see it on social media, but seeing it in real life, and then that just repeated hundreds of times. But that was the first time that sticks with me.
Man, I can imagine. Probably gives you a whole new like hope for humanity.
Yeah,
that
just
a lot of people
perspective,
don't
man.
get to see in person.
Yes, because it wasn't even about advertising. He just said it so like, a few extra bucks.
Yeah, and it's
She needed the
genuine.
home.
You're not setting him up. You're not prompting him. He doesn't know
No
this
idea.
is going to be filmed.
And I'm just like,
Crazy.
yeah. And then you see that all the time. And I feel like we become jaded because of sometimes bad things or negative things or selfish things that happen. But I truly believe humanity is good and people are good. And there's a lot of good out there. And then when you are good, you draw in a lot more good in your life versus obviously the vice versa.
100%. All right, so that's a touching story. Thank you for sharing that with me.
No problem.
Now, you stand outside for long hours. You talk to and engage with a lot of different people in a lot of different places. Has there ever been a fail when creating content, when interacting with people? Is there one specific video, one specific interaction that comes to mind that didn't quite go as planned?
In Miami, so there's this guy named Lamel. I was like, is that your yacht? He's like, no, it's pretty nice, isn't it? And I was like, I'm trying to manifest this. I'm like, do you want to go on a yacht today for free? He's like, at first I think you're bullshitting me, but if not, then yeah. And like, that's a really viral video. It had like 100-something million views.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've seen it, but we got him on a yacht. We did go for a crowdfund. We raised like $130,000 for him. And no idea at the time that he was homeless, but he was homeless, and he shared that at the end, and then we were able to document that. And now he's got an apartment, sees his kids. Now he's just releasing his first music video. Long story short.
Doesn't sound like a fail so
far. It doesn't. I'm setting it up.
All right.
So that was at 3:58 p.m. And at 4 o'clock, the free yacht was scheduled to go. Mm-hmm. I started filming at 9 a.m. that day in weather like yesterday, talking to hundreds of people. Anyone want to go on a yacht today for $1? Anyone want to go on a yacht today for free? People are waiting for charters. Do you want to go on your whole yacht? No, F you, no. Like all day in the most miserable mood. And I felt so bad because the guy was giving me a free yacht, and I was calling him and like, sorry, I don't think we can like do this. Like, he's like, do you want to come on the yacht? I'm like, I don't even want to go on the yacht at this point. So we go to the marina Port B, where that's where I was going to tell him that we can't do it. And there's this guy sitting down on the edge who's the homeless Lamel, looking up at the yacht saying, I'm trying to manifest this. Long story short, you asked me if there's ever a situation that goes bad. Every single day, every video, there's always like a drawback or a negative thing, but there always seems to be silver lining in it. He was the perfect person. It was a minute before the thing. He was the right person for that. Like every story, it's more so being patient with it.
How did that story end? You've got Lamel sitting there manifesting the yacht. You couldn't find anyone else to go out on the yacht. Yep. You hang out with Lamel all day on the yacht?
Yep. Went on the whole day on the yacht, Miami Beach. He's like dancing with he's literally driving the yacht at a certain point with his yacht hat on and living his best life. And now he went to his kid's graduation in Illinois. He has an apartment in Minnesota that he now has, and he's releasing his first music video, which is connected to that viral video, which will hopefully start his music career. We had Drake's DJ set up the music video shoot in Miami with yachts and Lambos and Ferraris, and he ended up full circle. So he was homeless in this Miami mission, and it was almost like a play off God's plan. So he used the funds from the video to give back to the community of the homeless people that was like his family at the time. So he like kind of like full circle for him. I gave to him that he's giving to like his community through the video, and then all the money that's AdSense or raised is going to go directly back to the mission.
So cool. All these stories,
Ripple
all these
effect.
people that you've touched, all these different characters, all the different fundraisers that you've done to change people's life. I can only imagine what that must feel like on like an internal resume. How much good you've done.
But dude, it's not me. Like that 130,000 I said raised was
Facilitating
was strangers.
It's all happening through you.
It's happening through me, but if you think about it, like think about the steps that have to go in. I make a video of Lamel and I say go donate. You're gonna watch the video. One, you think he's deserving enough. Two, you think the money's gonna somehow go to the right portal to go to him.
Yeah.
Three, the money's gonna go to me, which then I'm gonna eventually use to give to him directly, and then he's gonna allocate the money properly. That's gonna help his life. Like all the steps, and you're never gonna receive any like pat on your back for donating. All those steps from thousands of people, every single time. People are good, and it blows my mind away every single time. So I feel very blessed that the community that I've created or been a part of or orchestrated, whatever you want to call it, but it's the people. I'm just blessed to like be part of it.
I didn't plan on diving deeper into that whole process, but it's so interesting because there are so many people that you've helped through these fundraisers. What's the most that you've raised for somebody? What's that amount?
So it would have been in Compton, California, this past April for dad and son, Donald and Joseph.
I remember them.
Lakers game. We raised $234,000 for them in like a week's time. Got them a financial advisor, someone to help them learn financial literacy, which I think is really important with these GoFundMes, is not just to give them a lump sum of money. He had 7 different jobs lined up, and he's getting certified as a certain type of mechanic specialist through the money that was raised. He's got an apartment, his car is paid for, credit card debt paid, and his son, who is non-verbally autistic, 9 years old, has his medical needs taken care of for the next like 3 years. I think they took care of it. So to know that all those things from a video, that was the most surreal thing. But that only happened because the assistant Lakers coach, his name's Phil Handy, saw one of my videos, and he's like, let's make something happen with the Lakers. Here's 4 tickets and 4 pregame accesses. Make something happen. So if he didn't reach out to me and give me this viral, once-in-a-lifetime experience, which makes the viral video, which makes the video go viral, which raises more money, it wouldn't happen. And when we got to the court that day, every single player except LeBron, unfortunately, that he was training before the game, he made sure, go talk to young fella, go over here and sign his, like, made him feel special. He did not need to do that. So shout out Phil Handy, and like that's a perfect example of the people coming together to create that.
Yeah, it seems like you got some awesome partners in these experiences.
Very incredible people, man.
Yeah, can only imagine.
Yeah.
With the GoFundMe, say you raise $100,000 for somebody.
Yes.
That's all in your name. Money goes to you. Do you keep most of the percentage of that before giving it to?
So 2.9% goes to GoFundMe.
Okay.
So if it's $100,000, then it's like 97.1.
Fair.
And then 100% goes directly to the person's bank account or the beneficiary under their name. I am not in the middleman of the GoFundMe amount.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it gets slippery.
Definitely. I can see some accusations getting thrown around.
Sure.
Does everybody get a financial advisor? I think that's so helpful.
That's a new thing we started about 3 months ago because that's as my team's evolved and this thing's grown really fast. I've been fortunate enough to like, how can we, not just from like a person receiving it, but from a donor perspective to make that transparent is very important. And so, yeah, it's as of the last 3 months, I think since the one right before Donald and Joseph, that's when it started in like March.
It's a great idea. I think you teach a man to fish, then that one lump sum that they get is going to go a whole lot farther and actually change their life.
100%. It's not the money, it's having like the support and the education, the community to make that life pivot more than just here's a lump sum of money, good luck, and congrats on the viral video. That's 100%. Not the game. Yeah.
So Zach, you didn't start collaborating with Kim Kardashian to give people life-changing
collaborating with you.
You did. Take me through your evolution as a creator. I've seen a lot of different content styles come out of you until you found one that really resonated.
Okay, wow. So like you're like probably the first podcast I've ever spoken on MD Motivator. So I have to like think about it. So I guess it first started with I was formerly like a college dropout. So by getting over like, I think it was a 90-something percentile, don't know the exact number, but doing really well in the MCAT.
Yes.
I knew that was like my relatability feature. So I wanted to share content about what it was like as a college dropout, steps I've learned, and how to really excel in the MCAT because I studied for that thing too long for something that I feel like the more money, whether it's Kaplan or exam crackers, they throwing money at it doesn't solve the problem. I think you just need to know the right tools and the right, like, I guess, mindset of taking a lot of tests, doing a lot of practice questions, Anki or Anki, or however you say it, the flashcards. So I wanted to just incorporate, I felt like, with my story. So that was when I first started sharing my story, and I wanted to help students in that situation. Then when I got to med school, I still was helping students with the MCAT. And then is when I started getting, I guess, into my mental health, like, I guess,
phase.
And depressed. And I just wanted people, I wanted to find someone who related. So then it was about relatability with being not the greatest student. Then it was relatability with what I was going through from a mental health standpoint. And that was like me being on the other end, hoping that someone higher up or that's gone through it could relate. And then we created a company called the Mental Health Movement. So I don't know if you know Dr. Jay Goodman. He's a psychiatric resident at the University of Miami. We created a company that was podcast, philanthropic. We gave away thousands of dollars to high schools and college students. We had a clothing line. We did a drop with Puma. And that was like the coolest thing. And then we had Zoom where we did once a week on Sundays where we would connect with like everyone in the community. And like I felt like that was the coolest thing ever. So by creating that company and that vulnerable thing of kindness and connecting and mental health, I fell in love with him. Like then I wanted to dive into like how do I make people feel more connected. So it went from, I'd say, MCAT to mental health to connection. And then when I flipped it to the connection and like kindness at a time when we all really lacked it during COVID and the pandemic, that's when like it really like took off because that was a way broader scope.
Yes.
Everyone could relate. Everyone wanted to feel good. Everyone wanted to connect. And it made me feel what I needed to feel myself as. That was like my therapy. That made me feel better.
Before you reached a point where you were out there doing public interactions,
Yes,
I was following you for a long time, man. I remember when you were running around outside, doing the quote points, the candles.
Damn.
You did a lot of experimenting. A lot of it did really, really well.
Did.
How did you choose what was next? What was that experimentation process like? As a creator, you want to continue to experiment, try different formats to find one that finally works, and then you double down.
I guess, yeah, exactly. Doubling down when you find something that works. I guess I was, from that perspective, I was in Australia. My friend, his name is Fabio, but social media is Fabrizi. He's like a full-time videographer / content creator. He wasn't in med school, but he was probably my best friend at that time when I was transitioning out of med school era and trying to get into content creation. So I knew I had one of the best videographers access, plus I knew Australia was beautiful, so I wanted to incorporate, I guess, differentiating factors that other people in North America and med school or mental health stuff just wouldn't have access to. Right. So I was trying to showcase,
trying to stand out.
It's
hard to do nowadays.
It's very hard, and it's getting harder and harder. So having access to that and sharing the content versus me just sharing in my room like 5 bullet points, it's not as eye-dropping or gravitating. So that's why I started that. Candle videos. Saw a creator named Joey Kidney. He's Canadian as well. He did a lot of that stuff, but he that's his career. I really liked how he did that, so I kind of emulated some of that stuff.
Is that working better than running around? Why?
There's no thing that works. Obviously, there's some things that work better than others.
Yeah.
But they all have expiry dates.
Right.
So I guess it's just really honing in on like the analytics and knowing, okay, I can double down for how long and when do I need to pivot and when should I dabble fully into the next set of like pond.
Yep. There's only so many times someone can be scrolling their feed and seeing Zach with a candle.
Yep.
And they stop and pay attention.
Same with like if I gave a Ferrari away every week. Giving a Ferrari away is great, but if I gave a Ferrari every week, it'd be like, okay, we get it. Zach gives away a Ferrari.
Yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. So you can't be as predictable. That's a hard thing about social media. You always have to be pivoting.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Advice.
It is. So that, and then when I got home, I had access to a videographer full time who volunteered for the first 8 weeks for free.
Wow.
Never made a video in his life before, Patrick. And we've been working together ever since. And he just believed in the mission. He saw I had like a small enough following, like a good enough following at that time. I wasn't like bad, but it wasn't what it is today, obviously. And he just would help me for like 2 hours outside like our local mall. And then he worked at the local shoe shop in the mall for like 6 hours. Then we'd repeat the same thing the next day. And like I would stand outside blindfolded hugging when he was at work, no video, just because that was the only thing that made me feel good. And then after, say like I started in September, and January when I realized this could be like a long-term thing is when he quit the shoe shop and started working with me full time. And then We haven't looked back since.
Rewind 1 minute there. You were outside hugging without the video camera?
Every day. I was the guy, right?
This is how you know.
I was the
it's
guy in
real.
my hometown, like that, the blindfolded hugging dude every freaking day.
If there's anything you could say that's like, this guy's real, it's that. You out there hugging with no video camera.
And people
love that.
You brought up Kim K. Like, I tell you right now, the blindfolded hugging video days, I was happier than I was with the Kim K video.
Yeah.
That's how I knew I was on my right path. Is I felt not happier, purposeful. I felt like this is me. As weird as that is to say, dude, I thought you were in med school. Why are you blindfolded hugging strangers in the snow with 3 pairs of gloves on and a hat? Because I felt purposeful, and that was me. And I'm from a small town too, so like I was concerned with getting judged. It's not like in LA or Miami where people do like things outside the norm or outside the box. Like, this is weird as fuck.
Right.
Why is this dude doing this? But people really loved it, like gravitated towards it. Obviously on the internet, but even in my hometown, I had so much support and love. I never really got backlash. The only time I got backlash was a 15-year-old girl threw a Skittle at my head one time. That's it in 4 months. So it wasn't bad.
I don't know if you can count that as backlash.
The Skittle?
Yeah, some 15-year-old girl.
Some 15-year-old girls do.
Hey, loser, hugging people, threw a Skittle at your head.
I only know it was a 15-year-old girl because I had on K, because that was when Patrick was there that day. But no,
Oh man,
it was beautiful, man.
While we're on the topic of backlash, you've seen Mr. Beast curing blindness, and there's still haters coming after him for taking advantage of people in need for followers and for views.
Yep.
I imagine as a creator, you probably get less haters and backlash than just about anyone. I think your reputation's pretty pristine. But do you ever experience stuff like that? People saying that you're maybe abusing your role and the money for the views and for the followers. How do you respond?
I think, yeah. I think it comes more from people that don't have the understanding of how like my content like goes or follow me. If there's ever a situation where there's a money gap, or someone who's in financial need, I always set up a GoFundMe. Never had a GoFundMe do under $20,000. Now we're doing the financial advisors or financial literacy programs. So it's a learning process. Right. Obviously, it wasn't perfect at first, but my goal is to never like use people for content and always leave them in a better position than follow them. And more importantly than just that, always that the overall tone is a positive ripple effect for anyone watching to do the same in their own life.
Yeah. And you can tell it is.
Thank you. Appreciate
that. Let's dive into some of the logistics of how you get some of this content. And I asked because you told me a story at RiseCon this past weekend about strapping on a camera to your chest for a lot of these.
My man.
What are some of the tools, logistics involved in capturing genuine reactions from people out in public?
So obviously, like I said, I use like a hidden camera chest strap with like sweater and a backpack that covers it all, so it feels very organic. I also have like done this like thousands of times talking to strangers, so I know like the list of questions really fast that I'm gonna ask. Yep. So keeping it very fast paced, it's almost too fast to like really comprehend. The one-on-one conversations are more organic and feel way more like emotionally than if you're in a group setting with like 7 of your friends and I say, here's $1,000, you're gonna act much different than if I had you like one-on-one in an aisle and say $1,000 is for you. Right. It's a much different. So the intimacy is important. So if it's a POV style, it's with that. And then I also have Patrick as well. Work with Patrick. And he can record it sometimes with like a hidden camera angle, like the Kim Kardashian video.
Patrick's hiding in a corner somewhere, shooting on an iPhone?
No, like on a Sony A7 III.
Nice.
So we have like the Rode mics, so you're able to catch the audio from even like 100 feet away.
Yep. You're mic'd up? The guests or the...
No, they're not mic'd up, but it picks it up enough. So I'm mic'd up. He can hear it through his like headset to make sure the audio is good. Cool. And it just... the universal thing that works the most is you set up a camera and then press play, and then he pretends to be on the phone or scrolling, so that people are very obviously, they see a camera, they look at it, but if they see a camera and then they see the guy beside the camera on the phone, they're like, oh, it's just a camera, and then they go back to the organic conversation. So that's how we were able to solve that.
Cool. Was there a learning curve there? Were you like...
Every day I learn something new, bro.
I bet.
I'm not perfect at it. I'm learning.
No, the quality's awesome.
Thank
I mean, you
you.
see some of these videos and you can't hear anything, or it's shaky, and you guys do a really good job capturing the moment.
Good.
And
thank you.
I think that's why the videos do so well.
Thanks.
Zach, how do you choose the victims for your videos?
Victims.
The victims. The lucky victims that are selected.
I call it GOAT energy. So greatest of all time energy. So anyone that you speak to and you immediately feel better after speaking to them, whether it's a janitor, whether it's a CEO, whoever it is. It doesn't need to be someone down and out. It's just somebody who has really good energy. And then obviously fits the criteria of whatever the specific like opportunity is. Like if it's the Super Bowl, this guy we took to the Super Bowl, he's been a fan of football for 62 years. He played in high school. He was at the grocery store getting all the food for his Super Bowl party. Like all the things that go into it are just, I have like a logistic. So first, goat energy, and second, like a certain list of criteria of like the perfect person. People always say like, how did you find the perfect person? It's because I asked like 100 people or 200 people. Like I took someone to Disney in February for free from my hometown at school, and I asked 142 people. 142 people didn't want to go to Disney for free.
They said no.
And school just started that semester. They had no homework.
You find somebody, the first person, say you select, maybe this is a good fit.
Yeah.
And is there any screening questions that you use to evaluate whether you want to give them that, $10,000 or that trip?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you back out. Say I'm with my son, and you're taking us to the Miami Heat game.
Okay. Do you want to buy this mystery jersey for?
But you don't know that I have a lot of money.
Okay, that's fine. I don't. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of money. Okay. Do you want to buy this mystery jersey for $1?
Sure.
What's your son's name? Oh,
Little Jack.
What's up, Little Jack? How long you been a fan of the Miami Heat for? He'd be like, oh, I'm a fan. I want to be an NBA star. And you say like, oh, we've been a fan for 37 years.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, oh, like, how are you going to the game tonight? Oh no, like I'd love to, but we can't afford it, or we never been to a game before. But if you say like, oh, we've been like season ticket holders, and we're going to the final. We just went to the finals game last week. I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I'll give you the jersey, or I'll catch the loss and like lose the jersey for $1. So there's tons of that. Of like,
how many of those per video do you think you go through?
1 to 5. 1 to 5. Like you catch some else.
Sometimes a lot of people.
Try to.
Yeah.
But I'd never leave, like, even if in an awkward situation, I'd be like, there's your jersey for $1. And they're like, what in the world just happened?
Right.
But I don't even explain. Like, all right, I never use the content because I only use like the positives. There's so many. I could go way more viral if I used the rejections.
You have all those behind the scenes?
Oh, yeah, hard drives, terabytes.
You should start
terabytes, bro. Compilations of just rejections.
Yeah.
MD Motivator Uncensored.
Yeah, people like to see that stuff too.
They do, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to make people feel good, not to give views. The views come naturally.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. I've held back on that.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. Giving away a lot of money.
Yeah.
You're reaching into your pocket, Zach? How much money you got in there? Where does all the money come from?
I got nothing in it today, dude.
Oh, no, he's dropped his wallet.
I must have lost my wallet. Do you have like $1? From like stuff like that, like money trees. No. So first started with the blindfolded hugging videos. I was doing that for about 3-4 months. Then I went live. I used to go live like almost every day. And one of the lives, someone's like, I love how you make people feel in the hugging videos. Like, I want to give you $100. I said this in like the RiseCon. They're like, you want to give me your money? Like, why do you want to give me your money? And they're like, no, I love how you make people feel. Like, I want you to take this money and add it to how you make people feel. So that was the first time money ever got incorporated into a video.
And that was out of your pocket?
That was out of that stranger's pocket, $100. They just donated it to me. They sent it to my e-transfer. And then I would start doing TikTok lives for like 2 months. So like every day I would go, or every day I was gonna make a video, I'd go live. We'd raise $440 or $820 or whatever, or $500, whatever it is. And then I'd go and I'd say, okay, we're gonna raise this money today. The money's gonna go to like this family, or we're gonna do it for a taxi driver. We're gonna do this, and then the video will be posted tonight. Like I would do the fundraising, the video, the editing, and the posting all within the same day, so that people who donated knew exactly where the money went. They saw the total, it went up. Then I started having donation links in my bio so that people could do that. And then that started being enough to create the videos. And then I started getting companies and brands to sponsor. And then now YouTube has allowed me to continue to grow this thing, and the companies and brands have just continued to evolve. But it just started from a stranger saying, yo, here's $100. I'm like, you want to give me your money? That's how the money got into the videos.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then I remember the TikTok lives.
You've been on the TikTok lives.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
Bro, I feel like I was in like one of those, was it like when you auction, like an auctioneer?
Yeah.
You gotta go fast pace, have music. Yeah. Damn. Yeah.
Man, so cool.
Holy cow, you remember that?
So you spent a lot of time out there with the hugging videos. Obviously, a lot of trial and error and fails during these interviews.
Yes.
How many hours are you out there sometimes? What is that like?
For the hugging days?
Yeah, say you're making a hugging video and you need to find the perfect person for that day that you're going to make the video about.
There's not a time. It's just like a patience thing, right? It could happen within like 5 minutes. Or it could happen within like 6 hours.
So you've waited up to 6 hours?
Yeah. Longer, dude. Longer. 8, 10, 12. I don't know. Whatever it is that day. Just whatever it takes. I believe that I'm on the right path for me, but I do know I'm working really hard at it. And I'm consistently working hard and learning, like you said, with like the running or the candle videos, like constantly reevaluating and making slight pivots to never let it get boring and continue to grow and adapt and always be one step ahead of the curve. Because obviously there's other now content creators who are doing similar style, which is amazing, but it's a foundation I think I kind of created.
Yeah.
And so I'm fine with that because I always know that I'm like inventing the next step. So it's always about never getting complacent with it too.
You did pioneer this style, right? It feels like you did.
Mr. Beast did. But like in terms of like the short form video, I think that's kind of like, yeah, I did. But I just find it so cool that like other creators have done similar stuff or been inspired to create their own platforms to do that, because whether or not it's from an authentic space or not, I know for a fact authentically they are still creating a similar ripple effect that people that watch the videos do.
Yes.
Make the world better.
Not only are they giving back to the people in their videos, but they're hopefully going to inspire the next generation of creators.
Yes, sir.
To do this and to give back.
One of the coolest experiences of that, I want to share ripple effect.
Yeah.
So last summer we took 100 kids from like the local housing projects in my hometown to the water park for free. Me and like 3 others. Terrible idea. And when I was there was a dad with like 3 daughters, 10, 8, and 6. And the daughters came up to me and they're like, "Can we take a photo? We watch all your videos." So we took a photo. I was like, "Sure, absolutely." And then when I walked away, the 6-year-old girl tapped my elbow and she's like, "I just want to let you know that like my dad shows us all your videos every night before bed." She said this in 6-year-old English, not how I'm saying it. And she's like, "Last week we were watching one of your videos and the next day we went to the grocery store. When we were at the grocery store, there was somebody there who looked like they needed food. So I went home that night and I took my piggy bank and I cracked it because I wanted to do what the guy in the videos does." And then she went to the grocery store the next day and he was there and they got him groceries. And it's the idea that the dad was inspired to show his daughters the video. The daughter got a feeling at 6 to want to act on it. Then at the grocery store, the 6-year-old paying for the guy's groceries, the guy receiving, the other sisters, anyone else in the grocery store, then anyone else who goes and shares that story like I'm sharing right now today, is like that ripple effect is huge and it's powerful. And it's cool because she'll be attest to it. Like when anywhere we go, you never know who's like seen the videos or shared it or felt or been ripple affected. Like from 6 to like 86, black, white, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Like everyone, you never expect. It's beautiful. So yeah, just wanted to share that one with the piggy bank because that was cool.
That is really cool. A 6-year-old that you were able to inspire with your videos.
Yeah.
It goes so broad reaching beyond that. I think in terms of you were going to be a doctor. Obviously, you get to help people as a doctor.
Yes, sir.
But you touch millions of people every day now with your videos. And the fact that parents are showing this to their kids and it's turning those kids into good people, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel just, very grateful that but I always thought like doctor is like a best way of serving others. But I feel like any job, if it's coming from a purposeful place, is serving others. So me at 29 making TikTok videos, that's my place to serve others. Yeah. Everyone's job is to serve others. And the more you do it or the more purpose like aligned it is, the better you'll be at it with whatever it is. But yeah, I feel blessed.
That's a great message. Before we go a little bit deep, wanted to ask one last question about the content.
Anything.
You pioneered the current style. We're going to say that you're a pioneer. You're the pioneer. You're the father.
Go for it.
And you got to stay innovating if you're going to keep everyone's attention and stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
What's next? Do you have any idea?
Share that.
Do you have something up there though?
Yeah, I have some. I have some stuff up there.
Yeah.
It's
good?
It's my network that's allowed me to really level up fast. So continuing to use that to create these like almost once in a lifetime experiences that will be more than just local.
Yeah.
Moving forward. Yeah.
And talk about a moat, creating a moat around yourself as a creator, something that other creators can't just copy.
Yes.
Using your network, I think, is the best
100%.
way to do it.
Like no one's gonna go and make a video with Kim K.
I can't call up Kim Kardashian.
Good. Do you have her number?
No. You want to give it to me? I'm kidding. Zach, tell me about your struggle with mental health. I know this is important to you. When did it start?
It would have started probably like March of 2020. Kind of started like I went through like a 6-year relationship breakup at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my identity, my happiness. Then like a week later, I was playing basketball and tore my ACL. So losing that person that I felt like I was the most comfortable around, I wasn't even like that real self in front of my parents or like any other close friends at the time. And then losing my outlet, which was like sports and working out, that really put me in a downward spiral fast.
So all through high school and college.
I was good. I never really struggled with mental health. I always believed in it, but never thought it would impact me.
Yeah.
But when it impacted me, I didn't know how to like approach it too, from a standpoint of like, dude, you're like 28, you're med school, you're in Sydney, Australia, and living your best life. Like, how can I felt like, how could I complain? And then I also didn't want to worry my parents from being that far away and not being able to like act on it or be there. So it was really a lot of faking it, which puts you farther down the spiral. And not having made really good friends at that point, because I just moved there like 4 months ago. And when I was started med school, I was online like right away. So that made it really challenging. And then pretty much struggled with my mental health until like 2 weeks after like returning back home to Canada. And then like once I started, like I said, the first video 2 days after took off, and like I felt like I was my purpose. Like no more mental health problems. No more like, obviously there's highs and lows. There's still like not good days, but like I don't act on it the way I did before. I have a beautiful partner. I speak to Patrick. I talk to my parents about real life, how I actually feel, and it's good now. And I feel so grateful that like I learned the right toolbox for me when things come up now, that I don't go deep into that hole like I did then.
Where did you learn the toolbox when you were at your peak of your fighting your battle? Did you seek help from any professionals? Where did you learn how to cope?
I did like an online therapy session because there wasn't in-persons available.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work. I remember I was in like the library, and like I went back to like my study group, and like all I was thinking was like, don't show your tears, don't show your red eyes. Like, so like the whole premise of like that thought process is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to therapy, yet I can't show my emotion right after. Like obviously I was contrasting. Journaling didn't work for me. I journaled, but when I started like journaling my emotions through videos and connecting with strangers online, that was the first time that I felt like that was like my therapy. And then I wanted to do the same thing with others. Like I said, I was out there 8 hours a day to like have that stranger offload of like those feelings or emotions. And like that was when I was outside the Sydney Opera House, and like I spoke how I felt to those two strangers. That wasn't like the end all be all, but that was like the first time in my life where I was able to pivot in a different direction and feel like a release point. So I didn't think when I was speaking to strangers blindfolded that I was the end all be all, but hopefully that gave them the release point to make the next step in their own life.
That's great. You kind of found a medicine for yourself out in the world with social interaction.
Exactly.
That sounds probably like a scary thing to a lot of people who are fighting depression. Like, I'm depressed, I'm going to go talk to strangers. That sounds terrifying.
Yes.
From that perspective.
I didn't do it though.
So does creating content.
But like so I was sitting outside like at midnight in the rain outside the Opera House, and I was just crying, and these two middle-aged ladies came up to me and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." They're like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "I'm good. It's okay." And when they sat down and spoke to me for 30 minutes, like I didn't ask them, I didn't say, "Strangers, can you help me?"
Yeah.
I just remember how great it felt on the receiving end without putting myself out there to have finally that release point to people that I'll never see again. So it was through that experience of realizing how that felt to me that I felt way more comfortable to do it. So if you never experienced that, I wouldn't expect you to feel comfortable to do that, because that's the scariest thing, being vulnerably confident to share when you are in a hole, not when you're outside the hole. When you're outside the hole, it's easy to be like, I started here, I'm here.
What's amazing to me is that you left medical school.
Yes,
You're battling with depression.
Yeah.
You go home to Canada, and then you sit in front of the camera and you start making content. That sounds like the most terrifying thing I can imagine doing in that state.
Yeah.
What motivated you to get you to turn the camera on and start talking about it?
I just didn't want people to feel how I felt.
So pure.
Simple.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was it.
So turning this around, I guess, from a medical perspective,
Yes.
I didn't realize that you were pretty much okay, for, childhood, high school, college, and then it sounds like these traumatic events just triggered it
Yes.
and sent you into a spiral. Do you think, and I know this is, you don't have to do your best with this answer,
Sure.
depression, the way that most people deal with it, do you think it's a lot to do with circumstance, or do you think there's a big biochemical component to what you were going through?
I think it's a blend. I think it's like person situational dependent. For me, it was much more situational based than it was biochemical. Obviously, biochemical has something to do with it, but
Yeah.
definitely the situation for me. But I think everyone's different, and everyone's toolbox would look different.
Yeah.
I think
And everyone's depression is probably a little different.
Everyone's is different, if I didn't have my parents to say, okay, come back home, then my situation's fucked, or I need medication, or I need different optic. It just changes depending on everyone's. I'm so blessed to have that opportunity to move back home to chase that.
Yeah. There's a big controversy now with the medication. You just mentioned that.
Mm.
Whether it helps at all.
Yes.
And I know once you start somebody on those medications, it's very difficult to get them off of them. Did you ever try medication?
No, never did, but was going to if I would have stayed for probably a few more months.
Yeah. What is your opinion on that? People who are battling with the depression, should they eventually reach for the medication? Are there exercises that they can do
Yeah.
to avoid ever getting started on?
I think my biggest piece of advice is just to speak to your loved one support system and a qualified healthcare professional, and it's always situation dependent on a multitude of variables, as you know.
Yeah, that's a good answer. It's a tough thing that a lot of people battle with, especially
but I don't
men who do it in private.
Yes.
And they just rot from the inside. And you were, I guess, fortunate and brave enough to have and create an outlet for yourself.
Yes.
That I think was pivotal in fixing you.
Yeah.
So now that you're rich and famous, do you still deal with any of the depression?
I don't,
Not to make jokes of it. I'm sorry.
I don't feel depressed, man. I feel just blessed. Like, obviously I have good days and bad days, but no, I don't. And every day I meet a new stranger where I learn something and just teaches me gratitude and perspective, or hear their story, or just being part of. The biggest endorphin release is serving others, and I get to orchestrate or fulfill it or see it happen almost every day. Every day seems like a higher and higher level, and just no, I feel like I'm on cloud 9. I feel blessed. But the biggest thing was, I want to share one more thing.
Please.
The last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I was in New York City, Edmonton, Vegas, Miami, Chicago, Gary, Indiana, here, Tampa, 2-3 days. And I didn't make any time for me. So if you're a content creator or anyone in an entrepreneurial space, the last day and a half, I didn't respond to you till today or last night. Just unwind for 24 hours or 2 hours or a week, or whatever it is that's right. They can work with your schedule.
Well, now I
feel so good. No, you're good. I wanted to. There's nothing more. I told her there's nothing more. The only person I really wanted to do something with was with you, because you were there for me from day one when I had nothing to offer, and I'm so appreciative of our friendship. So don't feel, but just making time for yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup, and I feel just that's a really important piece. Even if you love what you're doing and you feel alive doing it, you still got to make time for you.
I think a lot of people get caught up in giving and giving back and forget to do that.
Yes.
And eventually they burn out and they deal with issues, and then they're the ones that need help.
Exactly. So you're finding that fine line, or that balance.
100%.
And playing with it, because there's never a perfect equation. It's just always refining it as you go along. It's fluid.
I'm big into dopamine and thresholds for dopamine.
Yes.
And you get a certain rush.
My threshold must be very high now.
Right. You've done so much good. You've touched so many people. You've given away so many Ferraris, shaken hands with so many celebrities. What is that like for you now to try and, is that even a driver? Are you do you feel numb when you go through that nowadays? What does get you excited? What gets you out of bed?
It's the stories more so than the end game. Whether we're giving away, like I said, oftentimes we giving away cars or stuff, but sometimes the blindfolded hug meant more in that moment to that individual than the car did. So it's really what it means to that person that makes me feel like that, I guess, the dopamine release. Yeah. But it's just the connection and hearing the person's story and where that gap is or where it can be fulfilled, and being able to do that is where I guess the fulfillment comes from.
last question before we go into some outros and how we can help
Sure,
out.
man.
Why Canada? You can live anywhere in the world
Mm,
doing content. Canada's snowing for most of the year.
it is.
Um,
Canada's my hometown,
Yeah.
and Windsor, Ontario is my hometown. But we're planning to move in the beginning of September to either Florida or the nemesis, California, to you guys.
that is our arch nemesis. I hope I can steer you towards Florida.
Yeah, just the opportunities in like the Los Angeles region with, like I said,
Oh,
being
yeah.
able to pioneer and to continue to level up with the people and the opportunities. That's where it's at.
Can't argue with that. They're
but
all there.
But I've been blessed, man. Like now when I'm home like 4 or 5 days a month, when I see my parents, it's different. It's not like I just get to spend quality time with them. They're proud of me. Like, it's just a different, to be able to like be home for like 4 or 5 days a month's great. But yeah, that's the next steps is probably California, somewhere in LA.
Cool. I'm excited for you, Zach.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
man.
our friendship more than you can imagine. I appreciate you coming here.
No, thank you, man.
Normally, I ask the guests how we can support you at the end of this, but I'm going to steer away from that. How can we support mental health? How can we support your causes? Is there anything that you're passionate about that me and our listeners can direct our attention to?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from like a paying it forward perspective, anyone that's listening or watching this podcast, I challenge you in the next 24 hours to do something that you know is a little bit outside your comfort zone and make that small act, whether it's calling a friend you haven't spoke to in a few months, paying for someone's coffee, talking to a stranger, doing the small thing that you know you're capable of doing, and then marinating or meditating with the idea and asking yourself, how did that make you feel during it? Those small acts are bigger than the $1,000, the Ferrari. Those small acts are the power and change that we all have within us. And I challenge you to do good and be good. And you never know what people are going through. So be kind.
True. Challenge accepted, brother.
Challenge.
Thank you for starting that movement. I
Let's
think
go.
world's a better place with you in it.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks for having me.